Do it again. Human, love me again like that human, said the alien. Dr. Maya Chen had always believed that love, like mathematics, followed predictable patterns. At 28, she was the youngest lead researcher at the Aurora Research Institute, a cutting-edge facility nestled in the Norwegian fjords where scientists studied consciousness and neural connectivity. Her days were filled with brain scans, neural mapping, and the cold comfort of data that never lied or left without explanation. The facility itself was a marvel of modern architecture, glass and steel rising from the rocky coastline like a crystal formation, its walls designed to blur the line between interior and exterior. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows of her lab, Maya could see the aurora borealis dancing across the winter sky, painting the fjord in ethereal greens and blues. Yet she rarely looked up from her work. Everything changed on a Tuesday in February. When the facility's experimental consciousness scanner picked up an anomaly, Maya was alone in the lab, running late-night calibrations, when the machine began registering patterns unlike anything in their database. The readings showed neural activity, but not from any subject connected to their system. That's impossible, she whispered, checking the connections. The scanner was designed to read brainwaves from volunteers in the adjacent rooms, but all the chambers were empty. The security guards had gone home hours ago, and she was supposedly alone in the building. The patterns on her screen were beautiful, flowing like music, pulsing like poetry. They reminded her of the aurora outside her window, unpredictable yet somehow intentional. As she leaned closer to study the data, something extraordinary happened. For just a moment, she could swear she felt something else in her mind, a gentle presence, curious and warm. Her rational mind rejected the possibility immediately. Neural scanners couldn't pick up thoughts from thin air. But as she prepared to shut down the equipment and blame the readings on atmospheric interference, a soft tone echoed through the lab's speakers. It wasn't random static or equipment malfunction. It was a melody, simple and haunting, as if someone were humming a lullaby from very far away. Maya's hands trembled as she recorded the signal. Over the next hour, the melody repeated with subtle variations, like someone learning to speak a new language. Each iteration was more complex, more intentional. When she finally traced the signal's origin, her breath caught in her throat. The readings were coming from the abandoned lighthouse on the island across the fjord, a lighthouse that had been empty for 30 years. Unable to resist her scientific curiosity, Maya gathered her equipment and made the journey across the icy water. By boat, the lighthouse stood silhouetted against the aurora, its weathered stone walls covered in decades of moss and salt spray. But as she approached, she noticed something impossible, a soft blue light glowing from the lamp room at the top, pulsing in rhythm with the melody that still played through her portable scanner. Inside the lighthouse, Maya climbed the spiral staircase, her footsteps echoing in the hollow tower. With each step, the signal grew stronger, and with it, that strange sense of presence in her mind. At the top, she found the lamp room transformed. Instead of the old lighthouse lens, crystalline formations covered every surface, growing from the walls like frozen flowers. They pulsed with bioluminescent light, and in their glow, Maya saw him. He stood with his back to her, tall and lean, his dark hair catching the aurora's reflection. When he turned, she saw eyes like deep water, filled with an intelligence that seemed both ancient and achingly lonely. He opened his mouth as if to speak, then closed it, tilting his head as if listening to something she couldn't hear. "You came," he said finally, his voice carrying an accent she couldn't place. "I wasn't sure the signal would reach you." Maya clutched her scanner, its readings now off the charts. "Who are you? How are you doing?" She gestured at the crystalline formations, at the impossible beauty surrounding them. He smiled, and something in her chest fluttered like a bird taking flight. "My name is Adrian, and like you, I study consciousness. But while you map the brain, I map the heart." As if responding to his words, the crystals pulsed brighter, and Maya felt that presence in her mind again, not invasive, but inviting. For the first time in years, the predictable patterns of her life began to shift, making room for something infinitely more complex and beautiful. Maya should have run. Every instinct honed by years of scientific training told her to document this anomaly and call her colleagues. Instead, she found herself stepping closer to Adrian, drawn by an inexplicable magnetism that made her scanner readings spike with each movement. "This is impossible," she whispered, reaching out to touch one of the crystalline formations. The moment her fingers made contact, The world exploded into sensation. She could feel Adrian's thoughts not as words, but as emotions painted in color and sound, loneliness like a deep ocean, wonder like sunrise. And underneath it all, a longing so profound it took her breath away. Adrian moved to her side, his presence both calming and electrifying. I know how it sounds. I've been alone here for 3 years, studying these formations. They appeared after a storm, growing from nothing but thought and desire. I'm not entirely human anymore, Maya. The crystals, they changed me. How do you know my name? She asked, though part of her already knew the answer. I've been watching your research through the neural scanner. Your dedication, your loneliness, it calls to me. We're more alike than you know. His hand hovered near hers on the crystal surface. You study consciousness from the outside. I experience it from within. Through their connection, Maya glimpsed fragments of Adrian's story. He had been a researcher too, studying electromagnetic fields and their effects on human consciousness. The storm that brought the crystals had also brought him to the lighthouse, where he'd been conducting unauthorized experiments. The crystals had grown around him, through him, making him a bridge between human thought and something far more expansive. Show me, Maya whispered, surprising herself with her boldness. Adrian's eyes searched her face. If I show you everything, you might not be able to go back to your old life. The crystals don't just connect minds, they connect souls. Maya thought of her sterile laboratory, her predictable routines, the emotional walls she'd built to protect herself from disappointment. Then she looked at Adrian, at the impossible beauty surrounding them, at the aurora painting the sky beyond the lighthouse windows. Maybe I don't want to go back. Adrian's smile was like dawn breaking. He placed his hand over hers on the crystal, and suddenly Maya wasn't just feeling his emotions, she was experiencing his memories. She saw him as a child, fascinated by the way birds navigated by magnetic fields. She felt his heartbreak when his research was dismissed by the academic community. She experienced his wonder the night the crystals first appeared, and his gradual transformation from human to something more. But what overwhelmed her most was the depth of his loneliness. For 3 years, he had existed in this space between worlds, able to connect with consciousness itself but unable to touch another human heart. Until now. You're not alone anymore, Maya said softly, her scientific mind marveling at how easily she accepted this impossible reality. Through the crystal, she could feel Adrian's gratitude like warm honey flowing through her veins. Neither are you, he replied, and Maya realized how true that was. She had spent years studying the mechanics of thought while ignoring the poetry of feeling. Now, through Adrian's transformed consciousness, she could experience both simultaneously. As the night deepened, they stood together in the lighthouse, hands touching the crystal, minds intertwined. Maya's scanner recorded readings that would revolutionize neuroscience, but she barely noticed. She was too busy learning a new language, the language of direct emotional connection, of thoughts shared without words, of two lonely souls finding completion in each other. Outside, the aurora danced with unusual intensity, as if the very atmosphere was responding to their connection. And perhaps it was. Maya was beginning to understand that consciousness might be far more than electrical impulses and gray matter. It might be the fundamental force that connected all things, and love might be its most powerful expression. When dawn finally broke over the fjord, Maya knew her life had changed forever. She was still a scientist, but now she was also something more, half of a connection that defied everything she thought she knew about the boundaries between self and other. Days blended into nights as Maya found herself returning to the lighthouse whenever she could slip away from her official duties. She told her colleagues she was investigating electromagnetic anomalies, not entirely a lie, given the strange readings the crystals produced. But the truth was far more personal. She was falling in love with a man who existed between human and something transcendent, and each encounter deepened their impossible bond. Adrian had created something beautiful in the lighthouse. Using his transformed consciousness and the crystal's power, he had grown what he called a garden of minds, spaces where thoughts could take physical form. In the lamp room, Maya watched in wonder as her memories of childhood summers became fields of golden wheat that rustled in a breeze that existed only in recollection. Adrian's longing for human connection manifested as bridges of light spanning impossible distances. How is this real? Maya asked one evening as they sat surrounded by floating orbs that pulsed with the rhythm of their combined heartbeats. Reality. is more flexible than we assumed, Adrian replied, his fingers intertwined with hers. Through their connection, she could feel his struggle to explain concepts that existed beyond language. Consciousness doesn't just observe reality, it participates in creating it. The crystals amplify that participation. Maya's scientific training warred with her growing acceptance of the miraculous. But the laws of physics are descriptions of patterns, not chains, Adrian finished gently. Watch. He focused on a space between them, and slowly, a flower began to form from pure thought. It started as concept beauty, growth, the promise of spring, then gradually took shape as a rose the color of aurora light. When Maya touched it, she could smell its impossible fragrance and feel the silk-soft petals against her skin. You created matter from consciousness, she breathed. We created it, Adrian corrected. I couldn't have done that alone anymore. The connection we share, it stabilizes the process. Two minds working in harmony can achieve what one cannot. Over the following weeks, they experimented together. Maya discovered she could project her analytical mind into the crystal matrix, mapping the pathways between thought and manifestation. Adrian showed her how emotions could be woven into structures more lasting than stone. Together, they built a room where the walls displayed the mathematical beauty underlying natural phenomena, fractals that bloomed like flowers, equations that sang like symphonies. But their growing intimacy came with challenges. Maya began to change, just as Adrian had. Her thoughts moved faster, process connections her baseline human mind couldn't have grasped. Sometimes she would lose hours standing before her laboratory equipment, seeing patterns in neural activity that revealed the hidden music of consciousness. Her colleagues noticed her distraction, her increasingly frequent absences. Dr. Elizabeth Reeves, Maya's mentor and the Institute's director, cornered her one afternoon. Maya, I'm concerned about you. Your work has become erratic, brilliant in some ways, but unfocused. And these readings you've been submitting, they suggest phenomena that simply aren't possible. Maya felt the weight of keeping her secret, but how could she explain that she was in love with a man who had been transformed by crystalline growths of pure consciousness, that they were rewriting the rules of reality in an abandoned lighthouse? I'm exploring new territories, Maya said carefully. Sometimes that requires accepting possibilities that seem impossible at first. That night, she shared her dilemma with Adrian as they walked along the lighthouse's gallery, the fjord stretching endlessly below them. I don't know how much longer I can hide this. My work is suffering, but more than that, I feel like I'm living two lives. Adrian stopped walking, his expression pained. I never wanted to take you away from your world. Maybe we should know. Maya turned to face him, her decision crystallizing. I don't want to go back to that world. I want to build a new one. With you. Adrian's eyes filled with wonder and something deeper, a love so profound it made the crystals around them pulse with sympathetic light. Are you certain? Once you let the crystals fully integrate with your consciousness, there may be no returning to purely human existence. Maya thought of her sterile laboratory, her lonely apartment, her predictable life, measuring thoughts without truly feeling them. Then she looked at Adrian, at the impossible garden they had grown together, at the love that defied every law of physics she had ever learned. Show me how. That night, under the dancing aurora, Maya placed both hands on the central crystal formation. She felt Adrian's consciousness join with hers, guiding her through the transformation. It was like learning to breathe underwater, terrifying and exhilarating simultaneously. Her awareness expanded beyond the boundaries of her skull, touching the vast network of consciousness that connected all living things. When dawn broke, Maya Chen, the isolated scientist, was gone. In her place stood Maya, gardener of minds, architect of impossible love, partner to a man who existed between worlds. And together, they began to dream of sharing their garden with others who yearned for deeper connection. The transformation wasn't gentle. As Maya's consciousness expanded and integrated with the crystal matrix, she discovered that love at this level came with profound challenges. Her enhanced awareness picked up not just Adrian's devotion, but also his fears, his doubts, the parts of himself he had never shared with another soul. 3 weeks after her transformation, Maya woke in the lighthouse to find Adrian standing at the edge of the gallery, his silhouette rigid against the pre-dawn sky. Through their connection, she felt his anguish like a physical wound. What's wrong? She asked, approaching carefully. The crystals around them pulsed with unstable light, reflecting Adrian's turbulent emotional state. I've been selfish, he said without turning around. I've pulled you into my isolation, made you like me. But Maya, look what's happening to you. She looked down at her hands and saw what he meant. Her skin had begun to show the same subtle luminescence that marked Adrian's transformation. Threads of crystalline growth traced delicate patterns along her arms, beautiful but undeniably alien. You're becoming something that can't exist in the normal world, Adrian continued. Your colleagues are already suspicious. How long before they realize what you've become? How long before they try to study you, contain you, separate us? Maya felt his love warring with his guilt and understood the depth of his sacrifice. You're thinking of leaving, she said quietly. I'm thinking of setting you free. The words hit her like a physical blow. Through their connection, she experienced Adrian's plan to sever their bond, to send her back to her human life before the transformation became irreversible. He was willing to return to his lonely existence to save her from sharing his fate. Don't you dare, Maya said, her voice stronger than she felt. Don't you dare make that choice for me. Maya knew. She moved to stand beside him, taking his hand. The moment their skin touched, their shared consciousness flared to life, and she deliberately opened herself completely to him. Feel what I feel, see what I see. Through their bond, she showed him her memories of the past 3 weeks. Not just the wonder and the love, but the profound sense of coming alive for the first time in her adult life. She let him experience her joy at finally understanding consciousness not as an object of study but as a living force. She shared her relief at no longer being alone with her thoughts, her excitement at discovering new possibilities for human connection. This isn't something you did to me, she said aloud as she showed him these truths through their link. This is something we chose together. And yes, it's dangerous. Yes, it changes everything. But Adrian, look at what we've built. She gestured toward the lighthouse interior, where their shared consciousness had created wonders. Rooms where music became visible light. Spaces where mathematical equations grew like living things. Gardens where thoughts bloomed into reality. We're not just lovers, Maya continued. We're pioneers. We've discovered that consciousness is creative force, that love can literally reshape reality. Are you really going to abandon that because it's frightening? Adrian's resistance wavered. Through their connection, Maya felt the moment his fear transformed into determination. The Institute will come looking for you eventually. When they do, they'll find us both. Then we'll be ready for them. As if summoned by her words, the lighthouse's crystal formations suddenly blazed with warning light. Both Maya and Adrian felt it simultaneously, a disturbance in the electromagnetic field surrounding the lighthouse. Vehicles were approaching. Across the water. Dr. Reeves, Maya whispered, recognizing the familiar mental signature even at this distance. Her enhanced consciousness could now perceive other minds like distant stars. She's brought others, scientists, security personnel. Adrian's expression hardened. They're not here to understand. They're here to contain. Maya felt a moment of pure terror. If they were separated now, if the connection was severed by force, would either of them survive? The crystal matrix had grown into their nervous systems. Breaking the link might kill them both. We need to show them, Maya said suddenly. Not tell them. Show them. Let them experience what we've experienced. Maya, that's incredibly dangerous. Their minds aren't prepared, then we prepare them. Maya's scientific training merged with her transformed consciousness. We create a buffer, a gentle introduction to expanded awareness. We show them that we're not a threat, we're an opportunity. Adrian looked at her with wonder and growing hope. A demonstration of connection rather than confrontation. Exactly. Together, they began to work. Using their combined consciousness and the lighthouse's crystal matrix, they created something unprecedented, a field of gentle mental contact that could touch unprepared minds without overwhelming them. It would allow Dr. Reeves and her team to experience, just for a moment, the profound connection that Maya and Adrian shared. As the boats drew closer, Maya felt Adrian's hand squeeze hers. Whatever happened next, they would face it together. Their love had already transformed them beyond recognition. Now they would discover if it was strong enough to transform others as well. The real test of their impossible romance was about to begin. Dr. Elizabeth Reeves stepped onto the lighthouse's stone foundation with the determined expression Maya remembered from their most challenging research projects. Behind her came a team of scientists, security personnel, and what appeared to be government officials. Through her enhanced consciousness, Maya could feel their mixture of curiosity, fear, and barely restrained aggression. Maya, doctor? Reeves called out, her voice echoing off the lighthouse walls. We need to talk. Maya and Adrian descended from the lamp room together, their hands linked, the crystalline formations pulsing gently around them. Maya saw her former mentor's eyes widen as she took in the impossible transformations, the living crystals, the subtle luminescence of Maya's skin, the way reality seemed more fluid in the lighthouse's interior spaces. Dr. Chen, one of the officials, stepped forward. I'm Agent Morrison with the Department of Scientific Security. We need you to come with us for evaluation. Evaluation? Adrian repeated quietly, and through their connection Maya felt his bitter amusement. Like a laboratory specimen. I'm not going anywhere, Maya said firmly. If you want to understand what's happening here, you'll have to experience it firsthand. Dr. Reeves moved closer, her scientific curiosity overriding her caution. Maya, what have you done to yourself? These readings we're getting, they suggest neurological changes that should be impossible. Not impossible, Maya replied, just unprecedented. She looked at her mentor, this woman who had guided her through graduate school, who had believed in her potential when others dismissed her theories. Elizabeth, do you trust me? I want to, but Maya, you're asking me to accept phenomena that contradict everything we know about consciousness, about physics itself. Maya nodded toward the central crystal formation. Then let me show you something that might change what we know. Before Agent Morrison could object, Maya placed her hand on the crystal and activated the gentle contact field she and Adrian had prepared. Instead of overwhelming their visitors with the full force of expanded consciousness, it offered just a taste, a moment of feeling truly connected to another mind. Dr. Reeves gasped as the field touched her awareness. For perhaps 10 seconds, she experienced what Maya experienced, the profound sense of connection, the expanded understanding, the indescribable feeling of consciousness recognizing itself in another. When the contact ended, tears were streaming down her face. My God, she whispered. Maya, that was like coming home. One by one, Maya offered the same gentle contact to the others. Some, like the security personnel, rejected it immediately, their minds too rigid with fear. But the scientists, the researchers, the people who had devoted their lives to understanding, they felt it. They understood. Agent Morrison was not among them. This is exactly what we were afraid of, he said, reaching for something at his belt. Some kind of mental manipulation, consciousness control. We're shutting this down. You can't shut down love, Adrian said quietly, speaking for the first time. His words carried such profound sadness that even Morrison hesitated. This isn't love, the agent replied. This is contamination, mutation, a threat to human cognitive integrity. Maya felt Adrian's pain at the words, felt his old fears resurging. Through their bond, she sent him strength, certainty, unshakable faith in what they had discovered together. You're wrong, she said to Morrison. This is evolution. This is humanity taking the next step toward truly understanding itself. Dr. Reeves stepped between Maya and the agent. Elizabeth, don't, Morrison warned. She's been compromised. No, Dr. Reeves said firmly. She's been transformed. And if we're wise, we'll learn from her instead of fearing her. What happened next surprised everyone. Dr. Reeves approached the crystal formation herself, placing both hands on its surface. Show me everything, she said to Maya. If this is really the future of human consciousness, I need to understand it completely. Maya looked at Adrian, who nodded despite his fear. Together, they opened their shared consciousness fully to Dr. Reeves. Not just the gentle contact this time, but the complete experience, the depth of their love, the expansion of awareness, the profound connection to the fundamental creative force of consciousness itself. Dr. Reeves didn't just experience it, she joined it. For one transcendent moment, three minds existed as one, and in that unity, they touched something vast and beautiful, the underlying consciousness that connected all living things. When they separated, Dr. Reeves was changed. Not physically, as Maya and Adrian had been, but mentally. She had glimpsed the possibilities, understood the potential. We're not going back to the institute, she announced to the assembled team. We're staying here, we're learning, and then, when we understand enough, we're sharing this with the world. Agent Morrison raised his weapon. I can't allow that. Then you'll have to stop all of us, Dr. Reeves replied calmly. One by one, the other scientists moved to stand with her. They had all felt the contact, all experienced that moment of profound connection. They understood what Maya and Adrian had discovered, that love, at its deepest level, was the force that bound consciousness together, and that this force could be cultivated, shared, and used to transform human experience itself. Morrison looked around at the faces surrounding him: scientists, researchers, people who had devoted their lives to expanding human knowledge. His weapon wavered. "This is how it begins," Maya said softly. "Not with force or fear, but with choice. With people deciding to reach out instead of pulling back. With love brave enough to bridge the space between separate minds." As the aurora danced overhead, painting the lighthouse in ethereal light, Morrison slowly lowered his weapon. The transformation had begun, not through coercion, but through the irresistible power of consciousness recognizing itself in another. Maya and Adrian's impossible love had become the seed of humanity's next great leap forward, the discovery that separation was illusion, that connection was choice, and that love was the fundamental force that could reshape not just hearts, but reality itself. In the lighthouse garden of minds, surrounded by friends and colleagues who had chosen understanding over fear, Maya and Adrian began to teach others the language of dreams made manifest. Their romance had become revolution, their love had become light, and their connection had become the bridge between what humanity was and what it could become, the future. Their love was limited only by the boundaries of imagination.